Thrive In Perimenopause Summit. This is your host Sonal Singhal. I hope you are taking full advantage of this free learning opportunity by listening to the interviews on your favorite topics and speakers. Do let me know of your summit's experience and don't forget to join my Facebook community to stay in touch. Someone rightly said that the best bridge between despair and hope is a good night's sleep. Sleep is arguably one of the most important factors for our good health. Our body needs a certain amount of shut-eye to function properly. In fact, lack of sleep can contribute to stress, and stress can create sleeplessness. To educate us more on sleep and stress connection in the perimenopause, I have with me Andrea Marsh of Cotswold Menopause. And Andrea is a Shiatsu practitioner for 15 years, menopause mentor, speaker, and author of book Understanding Your Menopause. And she has guested on BBC and digital radio and several podcasts. As a speaker, she is regularly invited at the menopause events and works with companies to increase menopause awareness at work. So welcome, Andrea, on the Thrive in Perimenopause Summit.
Hello, Sonal. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, and I think you have a very good presentation for us to share.
Yes, and actually it completely expands on everything that you've just said. So I'm just going to share it now.
And I will disappear.
Can you see it okay? Okay, hello. So as Sonal introduced me, I'm Andrea and I'm a Shiatsu and Chinese medicine practitioner in the UK. And this is what helped save me when I hit the perimenopause, because I was suffering from stress and I appreciated that. But all the symptoms that I had at the time, if I'd gone to the doctor about it and said, I'm really struggling with sleep, low moods, anxiety, I would have been told I was depressed and offered medication. And I knew I didn't want to do that. And I also knew I didn't feel depressed. So I really had to delve into what was going on in my own health. And from that, I've been able to resolve all of my symptoms. So, you know, I'm 50 now, completely symptom free, and obviously start helping my clients. Then I set up Cotswold Menopause, and then I wrote a book. So today we're just going to drill down into stress and sleep. And as Sonal rightly said, you get into a catch-22 situation. That lack of sleep causes stress and stress causes lack of sleep. So how do we intervene? So we need to understand what's going on first of all. So we're going to look at one specific major sex hormone today and one stress hormone today, and understand how to combat them to get your sleep back. So there are changing hormones. This really kicks off when hormones start to go into decline, but it's not estrogen. No, at this time it's progesterone. And progesterone is the hormone that kicks in and makes us feel calm during the month, whereas estrogen gets us a bit hot under the collar. So really what we need to do is help our declining levels of progesterone right now. So we're going to look at that. And then I'm going to mention cortisol a lot. This is our stress hormone. Now, it's not a bad guy. It gets a bad rap, but it's actually trying to de-stress us. But what cortisol needs in order to do its job is nutrition. So it starts taking that nutrition from your body. So you may have been getting by on the food that you are currently eating, but once cortisol, and especially high levels of cortisol, want to do their job of de-stressing you, they steal all your nutrition. And this leaves you with symptoms like brain fog, anxiety, achy joints, and many more symptoms, and really affects your sleep. So we have to help cortisol. And understanding that once you get into a stress pattern, this allows anxiety to happen. So if you've been a lifelong anxiety sufferer, as I was, and then anxiety came back, I was like, why has it come back when I've dealt with anxiety? It's come back because it's got a physical cause now. The root cause is the adrenaline and cortisol levels. So understanding that if you've got anxiety, you have got stress. Stress is deep in your body and it manifests as a symptom of anxiety. And the other thing we're going to look at today, because we are talking about sleep, is how night sweats affect a certain time of night and how we're going to get that sleep back. And the way I do this is using the Chinese medicine clock, where it breaks down 24 hours into what organs are processing in your body at what times of the day or night. So we're going to look at two major areas today, and if we can resolve those, we could get you back 3 to 4 hours sleep a night, and it'll be those 3 to 4 hours that you're missing at the moment. So what I found really important to find out was that you sleep in cycles of 90 minutes. So for a good 7.5 hours a night, you need 5 sleep cycles. Now, the problem is if you're awake between 1 and 3 or 3 and 4 or 4 and 6, you are losing 2 or 3 valuable sleep cycles. So if you can understand what's going on and you can make small changes to actually improve those sleep cycles, we start rebuilding your night back up again. So the first thing you can do if you wake up pretty groggy but you are getting a good night's sleep is to think about alarm clock time versus going to bed time, and start shifting things 15 or 30 minutes either way, morning and night, to fit in with your natural sleep cycles. Because if your alarm goes off when you're in light sleep, you'll wake up refreshed. But if you're got middle of a deep sleep cycle, then of course you're going to wake up feeling groggy. So that's one of the first things you can do. Now let's look specifically at what's going on with night sweats, which is 1 till 3. And then when we look at the nervous system later on, that's more to do with your stress levels. But if you're awake hot or anywhere through to hot and sweaty, then your night sweats are linked to what your liver is doing in the middle of the night. And this is specifically 1 till 3 or 2 till 4, depending on your time zone. Anyway, what's going on is the liver is like a car engine, and the harder it has to work, the hotter it gets. So what is making your liver get hot, and why is it getting so hot that you're feeling it as night sweats? And it's sugar. So what happens is what you eat in your dinner the night before gets processed in your gut for about 5 or so hours and kind of hits your bloodstream around the time that liver every day wants to run its cleansing process. So it would like to detox you, but unfortunately the sugars from your evening meal are getting in the way. So it's got to clean those out as well, or rather than clean them, got to process them, so it calls on insulin to turn it into something useful, turn it into energy. And then it can start your detoxing thereafter. So it's struggling to do these two jobs. So if you have a lot of foods that turn to sugar in your evening meal, this is potentially why you're wide awake come 3 a.m. A lot of women say, I get up and I walk around the house, or I clean the cooker or something. I've just got too much energy. So go back to your evening meal. It's giving you too much instant, like glucose energy, not enough nutrition to help you sleep. So looking at the sugars in your evening meal is really beneficial. And then the other thing we want to do is think about the time we eat. So the later we eat, the later those sugars are in your system. But we'll come on to that in a minute when we dive into food. So then the liver switches off. So you can literally go cold like that. It is an engine switching off. So you may not have woken up when you were warm, but you might wake up and you're cold and you're clammy or you're sweaty. And that's because the liver is shut down now and it's handing over to the nervous system. Now, the nervous system is that dark time of night. So if you're awake around the 4 a.m. mark and your mind is going to dark places and it's worrying and it's anxious, then the bottom line is you are missing nutrition. And I will go into that in a bit more in a slide coming up. But the nutrition I tell you to take today, take it, because in that you're awake and you cannot sleep between 4 and 6 a.m. is your body asking you for nutrition to help it sleep. The nervous system wants to do its job. It wants to shut down and put you into deep sleep, but it can't because it hasn't got the nutrition to do its job, and that nutrition is cortisol. Now, until we get you back your sleep, we are not going to improve your menopause. Until we get you back your sleep, we are not going to reduce stress. We have to rebuild your sleep. So we have to do what is needed to get those 2 sleep cycles back. So let's look at the relationship now between sleep and stress. So we know that when you're in the perimenopause specifically, this is a loss of progesterone. not estrogen. You will still have estrogen. If you've got periods, you've got estrogen. So it's the loss of progesterone that is allowing your body to get more stressed. And then the excess stress hormone, cortisol, is the one that's eating up and depleting your nutrition. So the only way we can intervene and top up this depleted state is to add things back in. We need to add in nutrition. Now, when we're in this depleted state, when this cortisol is taking the nutrition from your gut, it means you're not creating brain chemistry. If you're not creating the right chemicals to feed your brain is not going to perform, brain fog, and you're not going to have good feelings. So you end up with low moods. Low moods will lead to you feeling more anxious and more stressed, and around the cycle goes again. So we have to intervene. Now, I mentioned just before that anxiety now has a root cause during the perimenopause. It is this relationship with adrenaline and cortisol. So what women find helpful is to understand this so they can disassociate their emotional connection with their anxiety. Because a lot of women are going, why am I anxious? Why am I anxious? Am I anxious about this? Am I anxious about that? In thinking about anxiety, you create anxiety. So again, you're feeding into that stress cycle. So if you understand that anxiety now has a physical root cause, and that root cause is too much stress hormone, and that actually you can feed it, you can top up your nutrition and actually get it to stop, then you can disassociate emotionally from it. You don't have to think or worry about anxiety. You go, I understand it's my changing body. I am making changes. I am doing something for it. And when you think like that, you'll actually be a little bit less stressed because you're thinking more positively. So factoring in thinking positively actually can help you reduce your stress, enable your sleep, and help you reduce your symptoms. So this is what we look at, life factors now. We understand that stress and thinking about stress and thinking about anxiety can actually make things worse. So we have to look at and break down what's going on in our lives to improve and be more positive about things. And we'll talk about that later on. Now, you may not realize that exercise can be a factor in making you more stressed. So we're starting to separate out exercise from movement. Movement is really beneficial for the body, you know, balance, flexibility, strength. But exercise in the more traditional sense of high intensity classes, spin, circuits, jogging, all of these things are quite high intensity and they release adrenaline, and adrenaline releases cortisol. So you're actually feeding into the stress cycle. So looking at the exercise you're doing is really, really beneficial if you're trying to de-stress your body. And then the last thing we're going to look at today is understanding how your own self-care, which may not be what you think it is, but how understanding self-care to reduce your overwhelm, reduce your anxiety, reduce feeling guilt or stressed, feeds into the positive cycle of breaking these stress patterns. So we've got to look at food. And for me, this is a handy way of showing you how to eat. And specifically, we're going to talk about the evening meal, because if you remember, I said the evening meal impacts those night sweats between 1 and 3 a.m. So it is about looking at sugars in dinner, and sugars in dinner in the simplest form are your simple carbohydrates, like your bread, pasta, potatoes, and rice as well. It doesn't matter if it's white or brown. Of course, it's better to eat something that's got whole grain in, because it's got the fiber which you need. That just shows slows down the speed that the sugars kind of metabolize in your system, but it still ends up hitting your liver in the middle of the night. So white rice or brown rice at dinner really is still going to have the same effect on your liver. So what do you do if you want those blowout meals? Because I have those blowout meals. I'm not going to deny myself anything, but I think about the time I'm eating it. So we just eat earlier when we know we're going to have a big special meal, you know, and I still drink alcohol. You may or may not, but this is not about diet. This is not about deprivation. It's about working with your body chemistry, lightening the load on the liver so that you sleep better, which means some of these foods, move them to your lunch. So rice, brown rice is absolutely excellent to have at lunchtime because it fills you up. It's got the fiber in it and it balances out your blood sugars in the afternoon. So you can actually avoid the 3 p.m. slump if you eat better at lunchtime. And then if you eat better at breakfast, you set up good blood sugars for the day. So we can go into a lot of food changes and how they can support your whole menopause, but specifically to reduce night sweats is to reduce the sugars in the evening meal. We're reducing sugars, but we want to add in the more complex carbohydrates, which fruit and veg are. And so because we need to give nutrients for the cortisol. So firstly, we're going to try and help your cortisol levels with the food you eat. Then we're going to top up with supplements thereafter. But let's start with food, because if we've got a healthy, balanced diet, that's going to help your whole health as well as your sleep. So how to eat an evening meal, because I've known women stop their night sweats tonight by cutting out certain foods and upping other certain foods. You could have a better night's sleep tonight, and that's what I want for you. So what to do with your evening plates? Turn it into a garden. So some people say you should have 40% of this on your plate, 20% of that, etc. But that's all numbers. Let's go for a picture. If your plate looks like this picture, and you can see, I think there's chickpeas thrown in there, which are protein. So lay your plate like a garden. And this means your whole plate should be covered in greenery, but then of course you can toss in any other vegetables that you want. So, you know, you can have hot salads, cold salads, mixtures. In the winter, this would just become a medley of roasted vegetables. Then you can add in some fruit elements, you know, so pomegranate seeds sprinkled over, grapes, olives, whatever you like. The more variety you have on your plate, and it is easy to hit 12 to 15. You might be going, oh, I can't get 12 to 15 on the plate. Of course you can. It's just a variety. It's just starting to think more imaginatively about your meal. Then think of your protein as like the chairs and tables in the garden. So you have 4 chairs and a little table, and that is your protein content, whether it's mushrooms, tofu, fish, chicken, you name it, a sprinkle of your favorite protein. And then don't forget healthy fats. And then of course, you want to bring this alive with flavors, so herbs, zesty flavors, gentle spices. This is not bland eating. This is really, really tasty eating. And what this does is it puts nutrition into your gut. Cortisol will be happy because it's getting more nutrition. And if you've got spare nutrition after the cortisol's done its job, then you feed your brain, and your mood is what your food is. So if you've got low moods, you have low nutrition. So with the best will in the world, we can't get enough nutrients from our food right now due to intensive farming, partly, but partly stressed westernized style of living. And so the way to get back on your feet the quickest is to also add in plant-based nutritional supplements. So what do I mean by this? So nutritional supplements are your vitamins and minerals. Do you remember when I said you're awake at 4 a.m? That is because you're missing vital nutrients. And the number one is magnesium. I was really lucky that when I first took magnesium, my sleep came back that night. So I was already quite nutritionally rich. I was already eating a diet really rich in magnesium. But it wasn't until I added in some magnesium supplementation that my sleep changed that night. So that proved to me that we don't get enough of the best will in the world. We don't get enough from our food. If, however, you want to just do it with food, you will get there, but it will take a lot of time. And I also recommend you have a probiotic to help repopulate your guts with good bacteria as well, really support your microbiome. But if you want to get back on your feet, and really my clients will do this in less than 28 days, on average about 21 days, it is from adding plant-based supplements. And that's really important to understand, plant-based. Cheaper supplements are minerals, and might be rock minerals, which our body can't absorb and utilize. But if something is plant-based, then it's just like having a high intensity amount of food, and you're going to feed that cortisol, and you're going to start feeding your brain. Brain fog's going to go, and you are going to start feeling a lot happier. So get more nutrients, make the cortisol happy, reduce your stress, get back that 4 a.m. sleep, and have more energy during the day. Wake up feeling refreshed. So a big factor of daily stress is how we view the stress and how we run our lives. And so let's look at self-care in a slightly different way. So yes, if you can get me time, if you can walk the dog, read a book, do yoga, do a hobby, those are all therapeutic me times. Notice I didn't say jog or hit the gym in that. But yoga's good. And I do qigong. And this is because those are therapeutic, they're mindful, they calm the mind, they're good for the body, you just relax with those. So it's great if you can get those into your day, but I appreciate that for a lot of working women with children, you can't do that. So let's look at the self-care that you can do. And these are really 3 important factors. Number 1 is saying no more. And the reason for this is we're just programmed to say yes. Can you help me with? Can you do? And yes trips off our tongue. So I want you to bite your tongue and create that pause. You'll only bite your tongue 2 or 3 times, then the thought of it will stop you. In that pause, you've created a break to think. And the thought you're going to have is, check my diary. Do I want to do that? Is it too much of a pressure on me? And think and give yourself space to decide whether you want to do that. And then go back to that person pretty quickly and say, I'm sorry, I don't have the time. I'd like to help you, but not this time. There are nice ways of saying no. And what you've done there is you've released yourself of stress of trying to fit this in and do it. Guilt that you haven't done it. Guilt is negative on stress. So you don't want to feel guilty because it's negative. And you've also stopped the expectation of the other person relying on you. So it was far better to let them down nicely. They may not ask you again, or they might be fine about it, but it's taken pressure off you. And in taking that pressure off you, you have de-stressed yourself a certain amount. Okay, what happens daily? And whether at work, I know a lady that couldn't even bundle her pairs of socks, it produced overwhelm. So I do appreciate overwhelm can happen as much as that in the home as it can at work. So we want to create fire breaks for overwhelm. The first thing you need to do is recognize it. I do have a free guide to help you with overwhelm. If you nip over to Cotswold Menopause, you can grab that. But it's creating fire breaks. It's appreciating you're overwhelmed, stepping away, changing your breathing, changing your physiology, whether that's running up the stairs to the loo, going out to the garden and doing 5 minutes of qigong, or you might be a meditation person. Change your breathing, change your physiology. When you're working, work 45 minutes out of 60 and then do something physical for the other 15. It might be a phone call, but you might be walking around the garden, or you might be putting the washing on. It is breaking things into bite-sized manageable chunks throughout the day will make you far more productive. Even 20-minute power naps in the middle of the afternoon will actually make you more productive. Now, one of the great self-care things is how to get yourself back to sleep at 4 a.m. when your mind's in this negative, dark, worrying place. So you're now taking the supplements, you're taking the vitamins and minerals and magnesium. They may not be working yet if you're really depleted. So how do you interrupt what's going on in your head? And it's not by saying, no, don't think those things. And it's not by counting sheep. It is by interrupting negative thoughts with something that makes you happy, something that makes you grateful. Really think about it, really experience it, really feel it. This switches the hormone chemistry in your brain and makes you sleepy. Negativity, bad thoughts, dark thoughts keeps you awake. Positive, happy thoughts send you to sleep. So your energy is finite on a daily basis. Use it more wisely. Use it for your own health and self-care. Just going to finish up with positivity. All very well me saying, hey, be positive. I want to prove to you that positivity helps reduce your symptoms. If you've learned anything today, it's first of all, I've given you a toolkit now to help you get better sleep. That should make you feel more positive. The more positive you are about your menopause, and a study was done on this in Australia last year, the more open-minded, patient, curious you are about resolving your menopausal symptoms, will lessen your menopausal symptoms. For the one main reason is it decreases your stress, you decrease your stress, you bring down your cortisol levels, your nutrition goes up, goes to the right places, your symptoms come down. This is the maths to how to feel better and actually have a happier menopause. So if you've learned anything from today, it's be curious and resolve your symptoms, because honestly, being kind to yourself reduces stress. Adding in nutrition reduces stress, being positive reduces stress. And these are 3 major steps for you to have an incredible change and have a great menopause. So I'm Andrea from Cotswold Menopause, and Sonal has put together this fantastic summit called Thrive In Perimenopause. And as part of that, I'm adding to the packages on offer, and mine is called Feel Better, Relieve Your Symptoms in 28 Days. So if you're interested in that, I'm going to hand back to Sonal now, who is going to tell you about that probably after this presentation. So Sonal, have you got any questions? Wait for Sonal to come back. Hopefully that all made sense.
Yeah, I do have some questions, and thank you for this beautiful presentation. So one of the questions I have is, what time should we finish or by what time should we finish our evening meal?
Well, I mean, they say about 4 or 5 hours before you go to bed would be ideal, but that's not necessarily practical. I don't know how it is in other parts of the world, but in the UK, you know, women who've got jobs tend to not be eating till 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and then they're going to bed at 10, and then of course the nights there, the liver time is 1 to 3 a.m. So this is why you eat lighter. So it's if you're going to eat a heavy meal, if you're going to include those foods that I suggested, you have it on a weekend, have your main meal either at lunchtime or 3 o'clock or, you know, 5 o'clock, but I wouldn't go later than that. But if you're regularly eating at 7, 8 p.m., you've got to keep it a lot lighter.
Mm-hmm. So few more questions. I mean, you also talked about magnesium, which is a very important mineral for us.
Yeah.
And so in what form we can take magnesium?
So so there are many types of magnesium. If you err on the side of constipation, I'd recommend magnesium citrate. So that's a salt, but it's still in a capsule because that actually loosens up stools. And one of the main reasons for constipation is lack of magnesium. If you, however, are prone to having looser stools, then the one that isn't going to affect you so much is called magnesium glycinate. But still, I have magnesium that comes from whole food, so it's been created by extracting from plants.
What is that? The magnesium glycinate, huh?
Glycinate is the better one if you have loose stools. Citrate if you've got constipation.
Oh, okay. And then because I have heard about magnesium spray, like in water form. So there is something called magnesium chloride. I think that is the salt.
I don't know if it's chloride.
People do soak their feet in that.
They do. And I think those are all beneficial, and they're really good if you get muscle cramps. Mm-hmm. But we need magnesium being metabolized in the gut. Mm-hmm. So for that reason, it needs to be oral in capsule form.
Okay, so you are saying that oral is much better.
So I say orally, and then the others are depending on how maybe achy and joints get. But I think actually, if you just take it orally, you're probably covering most bases. Mm-hmm. And for me, for cramp, if I know I'm going to get cramp in the night because of a leg injury, I take it orally.
And it worked.
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, about the gift, I mean, would you like to say what is there in the gift you are giving?
Yeah, so this is Feel Better, Relieve Your Symptoms in 28 Days. So I mentioned you can really turn around your symptoms in 28 days. So I've got a 5-part video series that it's a presentation in each one, but it tells you which supplements to start adding in, which small changes to make. So you watch 1 episode a week over the 28 days, and you should, if you make all the changes that I suggest, your symptoms will be a lot less. And it explains why we do it in the order. So sleep is right at the start. But for example, if you're suffering from hot flushes, The reason why hot flushes will only get resolved at the end is because they're a culmination of all the other symptoms. So if you knock off the other symptoms, you will alleviate your hot flushes at the end. So that's my 5-part video series that I have added into your Thrive in the Perimenopause package.
Yeah, this sounds fantastic. And I think I will also have a look at it. And one more question about night sweats, because this is like a very common challenge. I mean, I'm hearing, I have not faced it yet, but I feel many women, they experience such a thing. So my question is, like, night sweats happen when we are almost reaching menopause, or it can happen any other time in perimenopause?
It can actually happen at any other time. Funnily enough, I experienced night sweats when I was about 40, 42, but I only experienced them on a Saturday night. So I had to understand why only on a Saturday night. So not on a Sunday, even though I probably ate more food on a Sunday. And it was to do with the types of food plus alcohol, and I ate later on a Saturday. If I eat exactly that same food earlier on a Sunday, I don't get night sweats. Plus my Chinese medicine background means I understand how the liver works. So night sweats can happen, I personally feel night sweats can happen absolutely independently of the menopause, because I was nowhere near the menopause. However, they will happen as part of the perimenopause and the menopause. They can happen anytime, because again, we're talking about the change of estrogen, metabolizing estrogen, dirty estrogens, and it's a whole talk in itself. So they all have an effect on the liver. So this is why they're associated with the menopause, but they're not exactly past the menopause. And I separate them from hot flushes during the night. That's different. Hot flushes during the night tend to happen more from 5 a.m. onwards, and they're to do with that rush of anxiety as you wake up. So you might be coming out of a sleep cycle, and then you go whoosh of adrenaline, anxiety, hot flush. Now I can't get back to the sleep. So hot flushes most definitely start 4 or 5 a.m. onwards, as opposed to the night sweats finishing at about 3 or 4, depending if you're on GMT or GMT +1, or basically it's summer hours, isn't it, in whichever country.
Okay, so thank you, Andrea. And I feel like I can talk to you for hours and hours, as so many things, or you can say our interests match so much. But for now, let's say bye until we meet again. And
thank you, Sonal.
Thank you so much for your time and sharing with us all the valuable information with our women audience.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.